If you're a solopreneur or you're a freelancer making under $10,000 a month and you really feel like you've hit that ceiling that you just cannot get past in your revenue, I made this for you because I've been there and I've spent the last few months really breaking down why some of these businesses scale pretty effortlessly while others stay stuck in their immediate circle or their network, relying on referrals. And it usually comes down to three very specific shifts in how you view your marketing. So most business owners at this level think that marketing is really just about better visuals, so like a better logo or a prettier Instagram feed. But I realized that's exactly why I was struggling in my own business for so long. Because real growth isn't about just your look, it's about your communication, your strategy, and your systems. So today I'm going to be walking you through three problems that I faced early on that kept me from growing and the exact systems that I installed to move beyond just guesswork, but into predictable growth. And so by the end of this video, you'll see why your offer probably actually isn't broken. You're just fixing and tweaking the wrong things. So let's get started. If we haven't met yet, my name is Sammy and I've built my own creative business using these exact strategies, as well as many other clients in different stages of growth. So just for context, my background is actually in video production, if you couldn't tell. And I got stuck selling videos for way too cheap. And it really wasn't until I started diving deeper into the problems that most businesses face that I was really able to hone in and start, one, helping clients even more, but two, really fixing my own business in the process. And so with that in mind, I'm a visual guy, so I'm just gonna basically break down and show you three of the most common problems that kept coming up as I was working with clients and actually working to fix my own business. So let me pull up the iPad here and we'll dive right in. So I think the goal for a lot of us is we want to hit that 6 to 7 figure range, but we end up getting hit with a bunch of problems along the way. So if that's our goal there, let's talk about some of the problems. So the first one would be you are just wasting money on all of the things that people would traditionally tell you go into marketing. Think a better website or SEO or paid ads, for example. You can even pay for that growth. People get stuck here because you're throwing dollars at things, guessing, hoping that it'll work. And then what do you have to show for it? A bunch of money thrown out the window. I think this is why marketing has a bad rap. A lot of people feel burned when it comes to either hiring marketers, paying for them, or doing it yourself, investing time and saying, okay, I rebuilt my website, but that didn't lead to anything. That didn't lead to any growth for my business. So what's the point? It's too risky to take time away from actual delivery in my business to focus on my marketing. So therefore, we just ignore it. Okay, so that's probably the first problem. The second would be that you don't have a consistent flow of leads. They have just dried up. You have no way to connect with new people. And so you sort of just are on this hamster wheel waiting for new referrals to come in. And when they do, the referrals feel very high intensity because that might be the only one that you're going to get for that month or the next couple months. And so you better make it worth it on that sales call or else you're stuck. And that can be really scary for small business owners. So that would be the second problem. The third would be that you are basically letting money slip through the cracks. We'll just put slip. You're letting money slip through the cracks. You've talked to leads over time. Maybe they weren't ready to buy from you at that time when you were talking. And so you just kind of moved on to the next sale. They moved on and you've never talked to them since. And you're leaving money on the table because you've never touched base with them. You don't know if 6 months down the line, they've actually gotten that problem taken care of. And so therefore, you guys don't ever talk, you lose touch and never end up getting a sale from previous leads. Okay, so those are kind of the core problems that people deal with. Let's talk about kind of how to think about maybe shifting your mindset to actually solve these problems. Okay, so one, if you're wasting money, I think you really need to install a simple marketing strategy. I'll just put MKTG. You really need a simple marketing strategy that works for you and not against you, because again, you're going to be heads down delivering. And I think the moment that you perceive that marketing is risky because it's pulling you away from that delivery and you're wasting money at it, you're throwing dollars at it, hoping that things will stick. you're going to stop all marketing activity because it just gets too overwhelming, too complicated. So we need something that is simple, that will work for you. Okay. And then on this leads side over here, we need to fix that, and we need to basically connect with, ideally, new leads every day. So we'll put leads daily. Every single day. That's the hope, right? Because if you solve your deal flow, if you solve your lead flow, you won't be as, I don't know, I see a lot of people making concessions when they're working to close a deal because you need to close that deal, if that makes sense. And I don't know if you've heard this term before, but it's called commission breath. It's basically when you are like dying to close a deal, people can tell, and you end up basically selling not out of service, not out of wanting to actually help somebody, but out of almost desperation. And I'm serious, like people can really pick up on that. And so when we position you to a point where you actually know where your leads are going to come from, you're not as worried about every single deal. It doesn't feel as high stakes as that one referral that I mentioned earlier that's going to come in once a month, maybe if you're lucky. But you really get room to, one, shape your business and shape your offer because you know what you're communicating and who you're communicating it with. But two, it becomes a lot more fun. You know, it's less risky, it's less high stakes, and you really get to play and find your ideal customer that way. So that's the hope. And then three, I think one of the bigger issues here is that you've let people slip through the cracks, right? And so if that's the case, we really need a way to recapture, I'm just going to put recapture that relationship in a way that is productive and leads to, further sales. So those are kind of the core issues that I see a lot of small business owners struggle with. And you'd be surprised how really common those problems are, whether you are, significantly under $10,000 or way, way, way above. These core problems I find no matter where you're at on the scale. So I think it's worth discussing, one, the problem so that we can name it. But then two, let's move on to actually talk about some of the solutions and then how this plays out practically. So if we need to install a new simple marketing plan, I think, again, you don't need to start with all of these paid growth strategies. They just end up wasting your money and you feel overwhelmed because you've dropped a ton of money on these things that just don't work. Again, I think when people think marketing, they think all of these paid growth options, the kind of traditional route. Again, you're thinking SEO, paid ads on Facebook, boosting your posts on Instagram. But again, you end up spending money to find out that none of it worked in the first place. So I think what we need to do first is we need to back up and make sure, what we're communicating to them is the right message. So we really need to focus on your message that you're sharing with them, because if that message is broken, I don't care how much money you throw at it, it's not going to work. Right? You can buy a brand new logo all day, every day, hire the top, designer, and find that there's no real change in business. So you could do a logo, you could build a new website, you could pay a videographer to, film your product. Again, you might find that it's not working. And 9 times out of 10, what I find is that it has to do with the message that you're communicating. Sometimes people will buy a new website, right? Or pay for a new website, never touch the messaging, just like, oh, let's copy everything over as far as content that was on the old one. But the design will work. That never happens because your message is broken. Okay, so I think to fix our message, what we need to do is really position your customer at the center of that story versus yourself. So that's why, I think if you go into a mechanic, right, to fix your car, you're not so much worried about hearing, well, hey, we've been in business for 30 years. So, my granddad started this business and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't move the needle for you as a customer. So you need to put yourself in the mindset of a customer when you need help, right? So when you need your car fixed, do you go in to the mechanic for that story? Or do you go to an expert who is like, hey, I know what you're dealing with. I've fixed 10 of these today. The problem really is your flux capacitor, or whatever it is, right? That is what you want. You want to hire an expert that, one, can understand what you're going through, but 2, has the expertise to actually go and solve that. So our whole marketing message needs to be centered around, again, positioning you as that expert, but really diving into their journey as a customer to say, no, I do understand what you're going through. Trust me. And I've seen it 10 other times today. It's super simple to fix, right? If you can communicate that message in your marketing, I don't care how ugly your website is. I just trust that you can fix it because you've entered into my story. You know how to fix my problem. Sweet. I'll throw all my money at you as the expert because you know how to fix this. Again, think of all of the times that you've gone into a business. Are you going to them to hear their story and how much experience they have, or are you going to get your problem solved? So our message really needs to center around solving your customer's problem. Okay? So if you're finding that you're not getting new leads in and you're just basically sitting around and waiting for referrals to come in, again, once a month, maybe once every couple months, that's a really scary position to be in. I have a feeling the problem is that you don't actually know who your ideal customer is. So we're going to put that here. Ideal customer, right? You don't know who your ideal customer is. Therefore, anybody and everybody who walks through the door, any referral partner that kind of refers someone your way, friend, family, whoever it is just going to throw somebody your way. The project scope is going to vary like crazy because you don't actually have a tailored solution to one target audience. Now, trust me, I have been through this myself as a small business owner. It's really scary to commit to one audience, one niche, as people say, niche, whatever. It's really scary to commit because you don't want to lock yourself out of working with this clientele when you can't even guarantee that that's going to bring more of those kind of people in through the door. So I get that. However, if your message is just generalized to the public, that's actually, in some ways, a lot of ways, working way against you. Because, again, do you want the expert who knows exactly how to solve your problem? Or do you want somebody who's like, yeah, I fix problems. I could figure it out, right? You don't want that because, it doesn't help you build a lot of confidence that you know how to solve my problem, okay? So I'm going to ask for your trust in this, but as you think about kind of fixing your marketing and growing your business, identify one core client that you really enjoy working with. Maybe you've worked with a handful of them, 2 or 3 or 10 or 100. I don't know. But find that common thread between them that, you feel like you could really enjoy a partnership with those people moving forward. And for me, I ended up finding that thread. And it tends to be people just like you, solopreneurs, small business owners who are feeling stuck in their marketing at a certain point. They're capped in their revenue. Okay, so find that thread, find their common pain point that you've noticed in your conversations with them, and tailor your message specifically to that one audience. Now, again, I know that can be scary to commit to, but I would say you will find other people that maybe are outside of that core message that you're sharing. But because you're very detailed in the problem that you solve for this one person, I've actually found that even when people maybe don't fit in 100%, they'll see that you are solving that problem for other people and they trust that you're an expert enough to kind of solve their problem. Okay, so moving on. The next step would be you've let revenue slip through the cracks. You need to basically recapture that relationship with people. And so we do that through really effective follow-up, right? And in my systems, I actually teach how to do this. But for right now, we just need to get the conversation going again. It's a general rule of thumb in marketing that retaining a customer and bringing them back into the fold is going to be way cheaper than actually going out and finding new customers. So I know that your temptation is to go find new and better referrals from Joe Schmo who recommended a couple of referrals to you in the past. But I would say it truly is going to be a better use of your time to go and talk to the people that you have previously worked with that maybe you're no longer working with anymore, and reactivate a conversation and say, hey, I know we fixed this problem, but have you considered this? Or have you looked at this? Or do you still need help with this? Because again, it's going to be way cheaper to go and have that conversation with that person versus, moving forward and trying to like pay for ads or anything like that. Okay. So focus on your follow up with these people. I don't care if that's a quick conversation, like a coffee, call their cell. I know people don't really do that anymore, but call their cell phone or shoot them a text and book a meeting with them. And maybe don't call it a meeting, like go grab coffee with them. Do it out of a genuine, concern for them and for their business, more so than you trying to close the next deal. Okay. That is basically the system, right? We talked about some of the core problems. We're looking over it. Like if your goal is to hit 6 and 7 figures, I think you really need to focus on these 3 core problems. You're wasting money on the wrong marketing solutions, on the wrong things that aren't making traction in your business. 2, you're stuck without leads. And 3, you've let revenue slip through the cracks. So hopefully that makes sense there. But I want to walk you through quickly an example, a real life example of a client that I've helped. And I'll kind of break down the strategy, how we implemented this in their business and actually produced some really cool results. All right, so here's the deal. I was working with a chiropractor who basically had an existing like in-person curriculum. They were selling it. It was like $2,500. So they were making good money on it, but they found that they were actually capped in their revenue because they couldn't reach people globally. They had people across the world who wanted to take their curriculum, but they had no way to reach them because those people couldn't afford to fly out and actually take this curriculum on top of the cost of the curriculum. So basically, this business had been in business for over 30 years. And they actually had one of the assets available to their business was a list of 300 people that they had worked with before. So 300 emails, which was really cool. I know that's not typical for a lot of people, especially if you're first starting out, but these guys had a list of 300 contacts that they'd been in touch with before, but didn't really know how to utilize that. So therefore, they had never reached out to those people. Again, when we're talking about relationship, like recapturing those relationships, they had 300 people literally just sitting there, right? So when I came in, basically they said like, we really want to create an online version of this curriculum, but we can't afford to go out and produce that because if they were going to do that, video production costs were going to cost in the tens of thousands of dollars. And so again, I said, whoa, wait, back up, right? If your goal is this, you want to get to 6 and 7 figures with this offer, we need to back up and say, don't throw money at, paying video guys who really don't know or don't have a strategy. And don't like go put this on credit cards or something or take a loan out to create this new stream of revenue. We need to get creative with this list that you already have. Okay, it's underutilized. You have resources available to your business. Let's get creative to think about how to utilize this list. So what we did was we basically created an email like follow-up campaign. So email campaign. Handwriting's not the best, but we created an email campaign that spanned about a month where basically we said, hey, look, we're taking pre-orders for this. If you will help us raise the money that we need to produce this course, you'll get it for half off. You'll be able to access it anywhere in the world if you have a Wi-Fi connection. And again, this is only available for the next 1 month. That raised a bunch of urgency in people because there was demand for their product and their offer already. But again, they were underutilizing a resource that they had available to their business. So just by getting creative and thinking about this, problem solving for those 3 problems I had communicated earlier, these are the results. We raised in that one email campaign in 1 month, $25,000, which is just insane to raise in 1 month. But out of that, we all got paid for our work, which was really cool. They were able to pay to get that new curriculum or to get that curriculum produced by professional videographers. And as a result, at the end of the day, they got a brand new revenue stream for their business that was going to last well beyond just that initial work that we did. This is now an evergreen product where they're getting paid for their online curriculum. So they captured revenue that was on the table. They knew they were leaving it, but they didn't have a message to communicate. They didn't know what leads to actually connect with, and they had let those people actually slip through the cracks for 30 years, just about, and had never reached out to them. Okay. So I want to make this clear. The reason that chiropractor was able to actually find that $25,000 in hidden revenue wasn't just because of luck, okay? It was actually because we finally had the clarity to see exactly where their growth was being kind of choked at that point. It was those three problems that we talked about earlier. And most of us in our businesses are just too close to the business, to the delivery, to see those gaps. And so that's actually why I built a tool for you called the System Scan. It's actually a document. It's the exact document that I use for these guys and for other businesses that I serve to find out if their problem is, in your offer or your reach. And so if you want to stop guessing and actually see where you're getting stuck, you can actually download that document for free at the link in the description. It's a simple tool, but it's actually designed to give you that same aha moment that I had when I was first starting out on this journey. So look, if you're still watching, I just want you to know I really appreciate you. This is actually my first YouTube video on this channel, and to be completely honest with you, it's a little nerve-wracking, right? To be putting this out there. I'm still figuring out like the format and all of the settings and blah, 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 and how to talk to this lens without feeling like a crazy person. So I'm sure you can relate if you've ever tried creating content before for your business, but I just want you to know that I'm really committed to sharing what I've learned building my own business, because I know how lonely that grind can feel, especially when revenue is just stuck. So if this helped you even a little bit, subscribing or leaving a comment means so much more than you know. It's actually the only way that I'll know if I'm even on the right track here. So please let me know in the comments what your biggest bottleneck is right now, and I'll do my best to actually jump in and help. So thank you for being a part of this journey, and I will see you in the next one.